Radio Flange Goblet is proud to present a clip from their upcoming Under Review series with a critical look at well-known avant-garde plagiarist and musician, Teddy Vague. In 1983, after the almost complete annihilation of good taste, Vague finds himself adrift without a record label after an art installation piece called A Turd on Your Boss's Desk is horribly misconstrued. Metaphorically wandering the highways of record companies, Vague hitches his wagon full of various stale meat pies, lengths of copper tubing, and the severed head of a mannequin, all props he has seen in the 1951 surrealist film The Post Office Chair, to the newly formed small label, and begins work on what would be his fourth plagiarized studio album. Pop critic Nigel Thing takes up his trousers. I'm sorry, I meant the story. At this time, Teddy Vague is living in a bathtub near Rotherham with several stuffed doll replicas of Frank Zappa's teeth, and is trying where he can to find the most obscurely obvious influences to heavily borrow from. It's into this haze of overdosing on the work of Hans Eisler and Marcel Duchamp that a slight waspish lady by the name of Agatha Rhyming Couplet wanders like a lost ferret near an all-you-can-grope sausage patty. She would turn out to be startlingly important in encouraging Teddy to steal as much as he can from stuff she already knew lots about, people like Stephen Wolp. Over the next few years, she would take Teddy on a journey of self-discovery and also routinely to a local laundrette where she would give his underthings a damn good scrubbing. Recording engineer Kirk Grendelpump Gusset. Working on the album that would become Trapped Mass Trombones, Dog's Wild Years, and Granny's Greenhouse, Teddy assembled some of the best living imitators of other far better and more original artists as his backing band. There was Gerald Kirkmenschen on bass, the infamous Dee Dee Penstrulzoid on harpsichord, Carla Whisk Bunches on marimba, glockenspiel, and dead cat, and Cherry Hip 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 Peaches McClitbarrel III on wind, by which I don't mean he, she, it played any wind instrument. Far from it. It was almost totally tone deaf. By playing wind, it meant that it crept into the studio about 30 seconds before we started and blew off like a bloody great donkey after too much brisket. Struggling to avoid the obvious pitfalls of coming up with anything remotely original, Teddy again turns to the self-destructive urge of overdosing on photo collages of Man Ray's left shin and ingesting massive amounts of Wheaty Grahams, a supermarket-owned rip-off brand of a much more popular and tasty breakfast cereal. Critic, basket weaver, and critic Clement Menu. It's easy to look at what Teddy is doing at this time as highly derivative, and of course it is, almost alarmingly so and without merit. And that is where Teddy's, dare I say it, imitation of genius lay. For what is art if not someone spread-eagled on a chaise longue in a velveteen shirt with a goatee beard, talking with an incredible pomposity and assumed knowledge about someone they've never actually met, while really talking in a thinly veiled way about just how great they really are and how stupid the common man is. Next time on Under Review, we find out what happened when critics got hold of Teddy's album, mostly a lot of ejaculation and backslapping, and we learn all about the tragic death of his common sense in 1985 that leads him to dressing up as Hitler and turning his pink Rolls Royce into a giant phallus and driving it into Harrods. Until then, please listen to this early, more melodic but no less derivative piece by Teddy while he was still known as the Walrus and the Carpet, that, at the time, and for reasons forgotten to us now, he calls theme song from the After Movie Diner. Now, I know he shot 3 people, but he really was very misunderstood. Hello and welcome to yet another episode of the After Movie Diner. It is absolutely spangtabulous that you are back. It really is. It really, very much, very really is. And I'd like to welcome you all to this show and just let you know that this is the last show before the diner turns 3 years old. Yes, next week's show will be our 3rd year anniversary. Can you believe it? And in fact, we actually turn 3 years old on Friday, July 25th. So please note that in the old diary. And what I'd like everyone listening to do to celebrate the 3rd anniversary is to send us emails, to send us tweets, to send us Facebook messages, and to send us voicemails, by which you can go to www.speakpipe.com/aftermoviediner, or indeed call us on an actual phone at 347-669-0053. Leave us a message, tell us your favorite episode, tell us what it is you like about the show, tell us what you hate about the show, whatever it is. That is what we're doing. And also, we would love it if you went to iTunes, TalkShoe, or Stitcher, or in fact anywhere where the show can be rated and reviewed, and rate and review the show. Please, let's have a big old push for the 3rd anniversary of the After Movie Diner. And a couple more things to mention is that the Diner Ditty albums are still available online to purchase, to download, to listen to, whatever you like. So please do feel free to go over to dinersditties.bandcamp.com and pick up an album today. It really, 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 really would help us here at the diner to maintain the diner, keep the website going, cover all the costs that are involved in doing the show, and also to keep me afloat and in food. So yes, if you're interested in the Diner Ditty albums, please go over to dinersditties.bandcamp.com and pick one up today. They're very, very reasonably priced, I can assure you. Okay, so that's about it as far as the Diner's 3rd birthday is concerned. However, for people who don't follow me on Facebook, follow me on Twitter, email me regularly, whatever, people who just don't know me online, they just maybe pick up this show randomly on iTunes or Stitcher or something like that and listen to it repeatedly in the bath. I don't know what you do. Maybe you're riding a very small pony. Maybe you are up in a hot air balloon looking down on the glories of Mother Nature. Who can really tell where you're listening to this damn show? Anyway, if you're just one of those people who casually listens and you think, you know what, I like the After Movie Diner chap, seems like a jolly good fellow, would like to hear more of his stuff, well, I have just started up a weekly live show that goes out live, funnily enough, at 11 p.m. on a Wednesday night. That's Eastern Standard Time. That's the East Coast of America. That's 3 hours ahead of LA and 5 hours behind the UK. That is 11 p.m. on a Wednesday night, and that show is called Crosstalk. It's also available on Facebook at www.facebook.com/Jon Cross Talk Show. And it's also on johncrosstalkshow.blogspot.com. And I believe we've got 6 or 7 episodes so far. Really going well. We do a bit of music, bit of comedy, and an interview every week. Last week we had Tom Sullivan, the special effects makeup guru from Evil Dead. And this week we've got Weird Paul, who claims to be the first ever vlogger. Who now has a YouTube page, as well as a musician and various other strings to his bow. So we have interesting and weird and wonderful guests from the world of online. That's over at Crosstalk, so please do check us out. And that goes out on the Second Unit Broadcast Network Mixler page every Wednesday night. But follow us on Facebook and you'll get the link in plenty of time, I promise you that. So if you like that kind of thing, if you like the show, if you like more of it, then head on over to Crosstalk. We're also on Twitter at Crosstalk Show.
Hey, this is Steve.
And Andrea.
And we're the hosts of Man-Child, a podcast about grown-up stuff.
Every week we talk about the trials and tribulations of getting older, but not necessarily wiser.
Not at all. Topics we cover include how old is too old to rage at a party?
Never too old to rage.
Modern communication.
One of us only communicates by sexting. Hint, it's not me.
It was only me that one time. How to be a better roommate and other grown-up stuff like that. We'd love to hang out with you grown-up style. So why...
Ew.
What?
So
why not subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, or your favorite podcasting app at manchildshow.com. I'm Steve.
And I'm Andrea.
And we're becoming adults for real this time.
At manchildshow.com. Wafoo FM.
Hello there, all you podcast fans.
And salutations.
We're here to let all you crazy fools know about a little website called Wafoo FM.
Which is a collective of super awesome and totally cool podcasts that me, Chris with a K,
and me, Chris with a C, create and splooge into and onto the interwebs for your ear pipes to enjoy.
Let's do this. which is our monthly pro wrestling show, of course. And then there's Blab Tracks, which is our semi-regular audio commentary show.
Indeed. And then there's the flagship show, once called Waffle FM, but now it's the Chris and Chris show, covering general entertainment news, the latest movie news, then capped off with a movie review or two.
Covering all kinds of genres, including horror, action,
Hong Kong cinema, Japanese cinema,
anime, comedy,
heaven a honky-tonk epics.
all sorts of tasty jazzy gubbins.
So if you'd like to taste some of this jazzy gubbins, take your fingers out of your bumhole and put them on your mouse, your iPod, or whatever you crazy mother crushers are doing these days, and head on over to wafoofm.com. That's a W, an A, an F, a U, an FM, and then a .com.
We're also available on iTunes. Just search for us. That's Wafoo FM. Also, we're on Facebook at facebook.com/Wafoo blog. So go on, check us out and all our lovely jazz shenanigans.
wafoofm.com, the podcasting empire, the total film called The Godfather, with Stotties.
Why I'm on pet like
How we're the podcast now, man, like Merriman, not my pet. Champion.
All right, hello and welcome to yet another episode of the After Movie Diner, and it is my sincere joy, thrill, and moustache-twirling glee to introduce back onto the show my longtime colleague and good-time friend, Jon Wallace, and we are going to be embarking on a whole new series of actor pods where we talk about two specific actors, just like we did with Woods and Weller. And I'm going to hand it over to Jon Wallace now to discuss that in more depth and give us the name of the actors that we're going to be covering. Hello, sir.
Hello, it's a joy to be back on the diner again, and we've been through. It's safe to say that we went through quite a series of discussions about who we were going to do, and in the end we wound up on these just because I think the reason we've actually fall down is in the end because, oh, sod it, let's do these two just to put an end to the endless discussions. But, for instance, Yaphet Kotto was in the mix for a while.
Yeah.
But he didn't really line up with either of the other two in terms of
No, because we had
comparisons
Val Kilmer and we had Michael Keaton were the other two that we were thinking about.
Yeah, and Kilmer... The problem with Kilmer is that I've never liked Kilmer. I just have never liked him. Apart from Top Secret and Kiss Kiss Bang Bang and a tiny cameo in True Romance.
Right.
I can't really think of another film where I've liked him very much. And like when I was younger, I used to really hate Kilmer.
Yeah.
So it seemed like a bit fake.
And Kotto doesn't fit. Kotto, I mean, I want to do a series later on where I expose you to more blaxploitation cinema that you haven't seen, and we can certainly do a bunch of Kotto movies. I mean, we definitely need to look at Bone and some others. But
because Yaphet Kotto we were going to do because we both love
Yaphet
that
Kotto.
man. I mean, he's just brilliant.
But he doesn't really go with Michael Keaton at all.
No. Or our other options. So what we've come up with is the two Michaels.
Yeah.
And we've got Michael Caine and Michael Keaton, which I'm really, really pleased with, because the reason why it's great is that they're two guys who we watched an awful lot of movies of theirs in our formative teenage years, and that translates to Woods and Weller as well.
Yeah.
So it just continues that nice Star Video-y tinge to...
Well, also because when Bob Hoskins died, we were talking about doing a Hoskins and Caine episode because we worked out they had starred in about 4 or 5 films together. And some of those movies are hard to get hold of. Some of those movies, like the When Lions Roared, the one where Caine plays Stalin, you couldn't get on with, and I didn't even bother watching. So
it was so poor.
So I said, well, why do a separate Michael Caine thing? Why not make it Caine and Keaton? Because it's Caine and Keaton, so you have the alliteration. It's Michael and Michael, which is perfect. And yes, Caine started a lot earlier, and we'll have to see whether we tackle like 60s Caine and whatever. But mainly at the moment, I think we're going to be looking at 80s and 90s Caine and Keaton, so that we can kind
and
of...
noughties. There'll be some good noughties.
Yeah, definitely. Well, there's the one they did together, which we'll probably build up to, which I think was in the noughties. But
But they both have that. The good thing about the other thing, which is great about them, is one of the difficult things when about putting together these sort of two interesting character actor pieces is it's quite difficult to find people who have leading roles, do a lot of them, and you might not have seen all their films, because there are the sort of big options like your Cruises and people like that, and your Schwarzeneggers and stuff like that. But then that slight step down into a sort of world of little curios and hidden gems that you might not know about, it's actually quite hard. Like there's loads of actors who I bloody love, and actresses who just haven't, they're constantly backups or little walk-ins or nice little cameos, but you could do a whole film about them in that.
And while I'm sure we will touch on movies that people are very, very familiar with, I know, for example, one of the double bills we want to do will include Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, for example. And I'm sure we might touch on Beetlejuice being like the main, big introduction of Keaton to the world, just like we did RoboCop in the Woods and Wallace series. But I'm more interested in those movies that Caine did in the 80s, which are just bonkers, like The Island and The Hand and things like that.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to these, I must say. And
then I'm also interested in discovering the Keaton movies that I know existed while they were out there. Like I remember One Good Cop, and there's The Paper, and a bunch of others. I can't think of them all right now. Clean and Sober and some others that Keaton did that I just never watched. You know what I mean? Like my big Keaton one
is a classic example. The Paper I must have seen on the Star Video shelves 100 times and gone, don't fancy it.
Yeah, and the same with like the cop one he did and some of the dramas he did. Like I just never. So that's what I'm interested in. I'm interested in the Keaton that other people might know really well, but we don't know so well. And I'm interested in the kind of cult Caine. We won't be doing like Hannah and her sisters or stuff like that because it's first of all it's a Woody movie. Secondly, he won his Oscar for it. Everyone's familiar with it, and so on. We've done Without a Clue previously, so obviously we won't be doing that. But we'll be.
But that's the glory of the two of them is that
we'll be looking.
You just
at
go to their IMDb pages and you go, there's a lot here.
Yeah,
and they're leading roles. So.
Yeah. But we will be touching on, I do want to do, because it's such a cheese fest, I do want to do Blue Ice, the one that Caine did with Hoskins and Ian Holm. And we could maybe pair that up with like some cheeseball action thriller that Keaton did as well. So, I mean, there's what I'm saying is there's lots to choose from. There's 3 decades worth of stuff. And, I know that both of us are also really, really anxious to see The Birdman with Keaton in. I know that we both really want to see that. So we might even cover that with like a more recent Caine.
I think we should definitely cover that. And I'm sure...
Endeavour.
I mean, Caine was in the recent movie, which is... again, in a way, this could help. He was in that recent movie, which I was just like... I can't really be bothered with it, which was directed by, is it the cinematographer from all the Batman movies or something? And it had Depp in it. And
what was it called?
I didn't see it.
Intolerable or something. It was called it was called like a one word. Is it called like... God,
isn't that amazing? I can't think what it was called.
Was Caine in it?
I think he was, or if he's not, he'll be in that space one with Mahoney.
Yeah, he's in Interstellar.
Yeah, so maybe we could do like Interstellar, but I'm pretty sure he was in that Depp one as well.
Yeah, you see, the one I will be interested in doing that he did with Christopher Nolan is the only one that I really genuinely love is The Prestige. So I will be interested in looking at that. But like, if I go back to sort of the 80s with Caine, I mean, sky's the limit. Bonkers fucking things that there are. I mean, Death Trap. I've never heard of Death Trap, and obviously we have to do The Island. I could maybe even go around and do The Hand again, although I did do it on Bloodbaths and Boomsticks. It is suitably ludicrous to do it here. Apparently, The Fourth Protocol with him and Pierce Brosnan is pretty good.
I saw someone saying that on the Facebook page.
Yeah, well, we had a load of feedback on the Facebook page about movies that people want to hear us do, which is really, really gratifying, and it means that we are going to, that people will be listening and they will be enjoying it because we will get round to some of those things. And, that After Movie Diner group, I keep saying on every podcast, but the group in particular has just been wonderful. It's just been amazing. They've just been so... embracing and conversational and into all this. It's been really wonderful, and it's really, really helped knowing that we can kind of go off on these weird tangents and still have an audience.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is nice. So which one did you want to do first? I kind of want to leave a shot to the system to last.
So the two movies we picked to start off with, just because it's sort of slap bang in the middle of 80s, 90s territory. It's at the bridge, that famous cultural bridge that was crossed between the 80s and the 90s, which, let's be honest, Caine and Keaton were leading the crossing of that bridge. They were leading figures in those decades.
They were straddling the decades, much like Caine straddles New York City and the poster for A Shock to the System.
Yeah. And these two films were, seminal of their time. Well, actually, I find it amazing because both of them are weirdly, if they came up in the pub quiz or something like that, I'd be all over them. I'd be, I'd say, yeah, that was Shock to the System. So we're doing Shock to the System, which is the Michael Caine movie, and then Pacific Heights, which is the Keaton movie. So we may as well do Pacific Heights first.
And they both have elements of crime. They both have elements of the law.
They're both villains in it.
They're both villains in it. They're both thrillers. They're both in 1990. And they both roughly get around 6 point something on IMDb. So they are, we thought, a very strong pairing to start off with, because there are a lot of, it is thematically strong, as we like to say when we strike out on these journeys. So why don't we start off, dude? Well, let me just, because I've got IMDb open, I don't know if you have, but let me just run it down. Pacific Heights, 1990, directed by John Schlesinger, who is most famous for movies like Marathon Man and Midnight Cowboy. So it takes place in San Francisco. It's got Melanie Griffith, Matthew Modine, and Michael Keaton.
Carter Hayes has come to San Francisco. He will search for the perfect apartment. He will find the perfect landlords. And now, the game begins.
I'm your new tenant. I'm Carter Hayes.
Melanie Griffith, Matthew Modine, and Michael Keaton.
Mr. Hayes? Mr. Hayes?
Pacific Heights.
Take it away, sir.
Yeah, so the story is that Griffith and Modine are a sort of up-and-coming young couple, and they buy this place up in the hills, San Fran, Pacific Heights, and the idea is that they're going to... It's this big, big, big old Victorian place, and they're going to do it up, rent out a couple of the apartments, and make a load of money and generally be sort of awful yuppies.
Well, the thing is they can only afford it if they rent out the apartments.
Yeah.
But if they rent out the apartments for what they're asking for, they'll actually be paying less than the rent they were paying on their previous place, even though the thing is a big, unwieldy $1 million mansion.
It's a big Reagan-esque, Reagan's dream, young love making money in 80s America. And they're showing out these rooms, and then one day the mysterious Porsche driving arched-eyebrowed Michael Keaton turns up and asks for a room, and sure enough, moves right in. That is the setup. I mean, that's it. And I would start by saying about the movie that it's remarkable for a couple of things. And actually, now that we're talking about it, the two movies do go together really well. In that, I don't think there's a chicken's chance in hell that either of these two movies would get made today, because they've got very. In Pacific Heights, I think both of their setups are very much of their time. Pacific Heights is basically a sort of yuppie homeowner nightmare in which the stakes are incredibly low. When you actually think about it, there's the peril in the film is minimal, really.
Well, no, I mean, the stakes are made that... You see, I think what the Pacific Heights is saying is about that bit where America is overextending itself and putting everything on a credit card, because the mistake the yuppies make is that they get a house that is contingent on renting stuff out, being very naive about the fact that renting in general is a massive fucking headache for landlords involved. It's not a dream for anybody. You know, even if you can afford the properties, being a landlord is still a pain in the ass. And there's no guarantees at all with any of it. And they clearly haven't looked into the laws about tenants and landlords and all the rest of it. But no, the big danger is that they lose everything, that they become bankrupt and they lose their house because they've overextended themselves. Because if he doesn't pay the rent, which he doesn't, if he doesn't pay the rent, they can't afford to pay their mortgage. Everything falls apart.
But then the problem is that now I would actually say that I generally have a problem with Griffith because she reminds me of.
Because she's awful. She is just.
Well, no. That's
awful.
the thing. I was going to say, like the more the movie went on, actually, the more I came around to her. The reason why I've generally had a problem with her is I always associate her with that movie Working Girl. And my mum used to watch that movie all the time and absolutely loved it. And the amount of times I must have seen that film like 3 times watching it with my mum, going, "Oh, bloody Working Girl again." And I just really hated it. And I hated Harrison Ford in that film and everything about it. So I came around to her fine. But Modine is the most hateful idiot the whole way through it.
But they're both
his
awful.
Character, yeah, he is bad as an actor to start.
I mean, it's
but
literally...
the character is just the most unsympathetic fool. And the reason why I say the stakes are low is that I just go like, so he loses his house. Well, boo-hoo. I don't care. I hope he loses his house because he's been such a fool about the whole thing. And I've been spending like the first 20 minutes of this film listening to them talk about their like finances and their marvelous plans for building an extension off the back web. I'm bored. And when's Keaton going to turn up and go off the hook?
Yeah, I mean the main problem with the movie for me is sort of 2 or 3-fold. I think the first thing is Griffith and Modine are both bland and annoying in equal measure. I mean. She's not as attractive as everyone seems to think she is, and he is a whiny tit, and neither of them can act at all in this movie. I mean, I know they've done other stuff, and I know Modine's in Full Metal Jacket and blah, 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 but in this movie, it's literally like watching John Schlesinger move around some 2x4 planks. I mean, it really is unimaginative bullshit, and they just grated on me. And like you say, the more over-the-top, stupid, oh, don't do that, it's only going to make things worse, ridiculousness that Modine started to enact, the more frustrated you get watching the movie, and the more you're just just bloody stop it.
But it is good, because when Keaton turns up, you're like, oh, thank God, come on, start fucking them over. Please start fucking them over. But then I cannot wait for them to be fucked over. And there's this bit where Modine's saying like, oh, okay, well, I'm going to need you to like fill out this form, get your references, kind of a thing. And Keaton's like, oh, well, the thing is I work for this private trust and, like, you know, all this stuff's going on, and this means that actually it's quite hard for me to, like, get good references, but I can get you to call this office, and if you speak to this guy, and, you know, then maybe... And the thing is, you're watching, like, I'm sorry, but if Michael Keaton walks into your house and those eyebrows are the things telling you these various stories, you're going to go, nah, sorry, don't trust you. You're
really
going
don't trust
to immediately refuse him any kind of entry into your house.
Yeah.
You'll happily, like, take him once you see some references, but anyone with that shifty an expression, it's just no, you wouldn't live anywhere near your house without any references. No way.
Not in a million years. And the other problem is, the other major glaring error with the movie is that Keaton is not in it enough. In fact, when
that's absolutely it.
When Keaton does move in, like you say, you expect Keaton slowly, like, bringing it to the boil and going a bit nuts, right? But actually what happens is this slightly innocuous hippie waster friend of Keaton moves in, and he's in the movie for a whole bit, and I'm like, who's this guy? Like, I don't care about this guy. Like, yeah. And also, if his whole thing is, I'm going to come in and strip all your house and sell off your cooker, what the fuck his plan is, which was never ever explained, right? What his plan was at all. But if his plan was just to strip out the cooker and bang a few why does he need a partner anyway? That made no sense. Then his next plan is to assume the identity of Bland Modine and, like, go around the country, like, racking up hotel bills and blah 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 under Modine's name. But the first half of the movie tells you explicitly that they have no money unless people pay the rent. So, and then it just keeps going on. And what ends up... And then, at the end of the movie, the biggest crime of the movie is that Michael Keaton then starts acting like an idiot. Because although they find him out, there's no evidence whatsoever, and there's nothing that he's done wrong whatsoever, right, that she could possibly get him done for without also getting done herself. Secondly, if he never then came back to their house and started to, like, try and fight them and blah, 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 he'd be off with Tippi Hedren on a yacht counting greenbacks. Like, the whole thing is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like, if he's meant to be this super intelligent psychopath, what's he doing? Like, none of it makes any sense.
That's what I mean about the stakes being low, is that even some things which appeared, which seemed like an obvious thing was going to come, not even that happened. Like, at the very beginning of the film, just when they've moved into the house, this cat appears, and it's like this local cat, and they sort of adopt it, and it's all fluffy, and they sort of, you know, and it comes in and meows when they're doing their measuring the curtains or whatever in this sort of turgid opening 20 minutes. And as soon as I saw that cat, I thought, that cat is dead. Keaton is going to kill that cat, and he's going to post it in pieces through the door, or they're going to find it nailed to their car or whatever. Like, that cat is not going to have a good time. Instead, Keaton and his, like you say, like, hippie mate kind of adopt the cat, and there's even a moment where you see Keaton going like, kitty, kitty, kitty. And when he does that, I think, like, finally, here we go. Now he's going to kill the cat. No, he just strokes it a bit and goes on doing his thing. And it's like, when's something going to happen? That's what I mean about the stakes being low, is that I remember seeing that. I sat down to watch this thinking, I remember watching this when I was like, I don't know, 13 or 14 maybe, and thinking, coming away from it with two things, which is, what happened there, Michael Keaton was barely in it, and I don't get what it was supposed to be about, or why I was supposed to care. If you watch the trailer, you might think two ways. You might think it was like a psychological thriller, or which is more the way it's pitched, or you might think it might be a sort of more horrific kind of a thriller. But it does neither. In the end, it's like you say, they're making noise at night, and they're waking up the neighbours, and the Japanese neighbours turn up, and they're all annoyed about the noise. And you're like, oh, come on, be a bit more than noise, you know. And then there's
he unleashes cockroaches.
Then he unleashes cockroaches. Whoa, cockroaches! Now we're really at big school, you know. And then and then it's like, oh, he removed the. And there was, but the reason why I think that it wasn't trying to actually say anything, or if it it struck me as like, now that you say it, you talk about this other guy that was there, because basically there's this bit where they go down, like Griffith goes up to the door and she knocks on the door to speak to him or something, and this other guy answers the door.
Right, the guy with the sideburns.
Yeah, and the thing about him is that you get it, now that you mention it, is he kind of makes me think, I wonder if there was a much different script that this started off as, but it doesn't seem like there was, because, well, actually, I don't know. I don't know what IMDb has to say about that, how many people were involved, but it seems odd that he's there, because in the end, his only purpose is to say...
Dude, the first bit of trivia on IMDb...
Oh, I know this, yeah.
Screenwriter Daniel Pine once rented an apartment to a tenant that he could not evict. The film was inspired from this scenario. Wow, what inspiration!
Well, that's what I mean. You see, I don't think it's like anything but a sort of Reagan-esque yuppie nightmare. I mean, I think that's what's quite weak about it. Is it's just like, oh, imagine, you've bought this lovely house and, oh, you're going to make it all gorgeous, and then this awful man comes in and makes it impossible. Like, it's just... Do you know what I mean? That's what I mean by the stakes are so low. Like, there's at no point until the end, in a very tokenistic way, is anyone's life in danger. And at no
it seems
point...
to think it's like a Hitchcockian thriller, but it's sort of... The things that are meant to rack up the tension... don't rack up tension, they rack up annoyance. Because you're sat watching it and you're like, so he's making noise. Well, okay, that's annoying. Oh, okay, so he's unleashed bugs into the apartment. Well, that's really annoying. Why has he done that? Oh, that hasn't been explained why he would do that. For example, if he's a con man, right, that's going to move into a place, strip it out, steal your identity and move on.
He steals sinks.
Steals sinks and light fittings.
Which has got to be like 50 quid.
50 quid.
He can't be raking it in off this scheme.
No. So
it's not a get rich quick scheme. It's a scrape by for a couple of weeks scheme.
Not only that, but he has Tippi Hedren waiting in the wings financing everything. So why not just hang out with her?
Yeah.
So
just get her to the altar.
So what ends up happening is that the bugs thing is the thing that bothers me, because I'm like, why do that? Like, why draw attention to... Like, just do whatever you're doing and move on. Like, none of it...
Well, the idea... There was an idea there, which was basically he become... But again, it didn't really follow through on it, and it wasn't consistent the whole way through the film. But there was a period of about 20 minutes where they, like, hired the lawyer and they're trying to get him out. Right. And there's a period where they basically say, oh, his plan is... He comes in and becomes a horrible annoyance, drives them crazy, and forces them to sort of assault him and attack him. Then launches a civil suit, strips them for everything that they're worth, winds up probably in charge of the house and makes a load of money out of it, right, or whatever, And that's like, but again, you're just like, well, why do I care? It's this sort of domestic. It's this sort of snippy, yuppie domestic that's going on up the street. I mean, I don't know why I'd go and watch a film about this. It's a bit like going to watch a film about like a rental dispute. I mean, that's what it is, isn't it? I mean, that's what it is.
Yes.
It's a film about a rental dispute.
And if it was, there is slight intrigue to the idea that without paying any money, and I don't know if he signs any papers. Maybe he signed... I think he does say to the policeman, oh, I signed a lease. So without paying any money and without any references and without a credit check and blah, 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 that essentially he can't be kicked out of the house. Like, there is a slight intrigue there where you're like, really? The system is like that?
Yeah, that's bullshit. That's bullshit. If you look on IMDb says the law that the policeman quotes about they can't kick him out is bullshit. Like, that's not real. That's So it's all it is like, that's why I say, like, the thing that is most feeble about it is it's this sort of well-off homeowner panic about, or wouldn't it be awful,
Well, because I know that if you start renting a place and you've paid with, like, and you've signed something and you've paid and you've paid and you've paid, and for a couple of months you can't afford to pay, no, they can't just evict you the first day you can't pay. Like, there is a process by which... They either have to get you out or they have to let you pay it off in installments or whatever it is once you're in. But this idea that he's paid absolutely nothing, showed up on the day without any agreement, and just moved in, changed the locks, and started tearing the place up. Yeah, I don't believe that for a second. And like you're telling me, it's not even
But there's
true.
this other thing, that's the other thing about it, which was strange, and sort of this sort of a very sort of materialistic response to a moment, which was, and this is why I say again, it's this sort of yuppie nightmare, this sort of property-owning nightmare, and the nightmare is all connected. Instead of to like life being in jeopardy, it's all about property being in jeopardy, because there's this bit where she goes into the room at the end after he's disappeared, and she looks around the room and everything's been ripped out. So he's ripped out the fireplace, he's ripped out the bath, he's ripped out the light fittings, etc., etc. And I just thought, well, and she's horribly upset, and she's sort of looking around going, oh my God, oh, it's so terrible, oh. And I just thought, well, why would you even think? Wouldn't you just be thrilled after he's been driving you mental for the last 6 months to get rid of him? Like, that would be your reaction. I don't believe that you'd go in there and say, oh my God, he took the sink. Like, you just go like, thank God he's gone. Thank God crazy cockroach man has gone.
Yeah.
I mean, 'cause there were the psychological thriller bits that might have worked if it had been completely differently paced and, and been given a good few rewrites, were the fact that she has a miscarriage. That's quite a moment. The fact that the other guy being in there could have led somewhere. Which
It's quite a moment, but it's also so insanely over the top as well. The fact that the stress of this cause. I mean, it's not over the top in reality.
No, but if you see what I mean, it's a good device for.
Yeah, but it's a device.
For him
like
then going up after with flowers and saying, oh, I'm so sorry about that. That's a good. That was a nice sneaky moment for him to like Weasley Keaton thing to do, for him to go up afterwards and go.
Right, but they
oh, I'm
ruined
so
it by
sorry
having
with
a
that.
fight that was so over the top and unbelievable, where they smash through the pane of glass on the front of the door and roll down the steps and all the rest. It's like, what nonsense! Even if you were that angry, like if you or I, right, and we got that angry about something that we had to swing a punch, right. It would be the first punch in my life I've ever really swung. So the idea that it would then lead to this incredibly dramatic rolling downstairs brawl where we both smashed through plate glass window, nonsense. I might swing a punch, horribly miss, and then get angry and slam the door. But I mean, the last thing it's going to do is lead to some big Hollywood fight.
But you wouldn't care. You wouldn't care watching the film about that moment if it had been building up to it in a consistent way. But instead, like you say, it's basically like he's a bit noisy. there's some cockroaches. He changes the locks, and you're just like, why do I care?
Yeah.
I don't care. And the worst thing is, like you say, because he does so little, because he's got so little to do, it's just a bit like, what, Keaton is wasted. I just think he's really, really wasted, because you can see where they're casting go, brilliant. Michael Keaton is going to absolutely nail being the tenant from hell kind of a thing. And the whole thing should have been, they sat down and they go, okay, how do we make the ultimate tenant from hell? And build it up, big moment. And then what I quite liked, and the bit where I started to like Griffith, I mean, and purely because at least something was sort of happening.
Yeah, right.
Was her getting revenge. I liked the idea of her getting revenge, and I thought that could work quite well.
But again, the way she gets revenge on him is to order a bunch of food he can't pay for. And I was just... Well.
Yeah, but still, and exactly, it didn't quite come off properly, and that should have been the end. And then instead, there's this awful tacked on.
You didn't think, I don't know, maybe go to the police? No, I'll just order some room service he can't afford, so he's embarrassed
if
at the hotel.
If she'd have come up with some way to, if they'd have come up with a better way to like completely ruin him, or make life like incredibly stressful and hellish, like he's supposed to have done to them, then fair enough. But in the end, it's like. It nearly works, and then there's this awful tacked on bit at the end where finally someone's life is in danger, but only for about 5 minutes. And that bit, isn't it weird? That bit where Modine is like under the floorboards and he grabs Keaton's foot, and you're like, what kind of an ending is this?
Oh, it's so weak.
Modine under the floorboards. Yeah, and so I
then
I
Keaton
think,
slowly falls back onto the rods, and you're like.
Yeah.
Okay, but am I meant to be shocked by this ending? I really don't understand what's going on.
Well, Hamble was watching it with me, and she said to me at the end of it, like, I think the cat and the cockroaches were the most committed actors throughout this film. And I agree with her. Like, the performances are not good, and to be honest, I don't really blame any of the actors in it, because I think the script is very.
I blame Modine and Griffith. I mean, I agree with you that the script is pretty awful, and I agree with you that Schlesinger feels somewhat over the top and melodramatic in the way that he chooses to stage certain things. It would be a much more interesting film if it was a sort of slow pot boiler that kind of built and built and built and built. But there's so much flapping about and so much excess and so much drivel.
And and it's never clear what Keaton's game is or what his plan is or any of it. And it's also not clear what his background is. Like, there's actually quite a lot of stuff exploring his background, and you go, sorry, I'm still not clear why any of this is happening and why I should care. You know,
right.
There's this whole thing where there's this like cigar chomping lawyer, and they've got this whole like office set for this lawyer.
Yeah.
And there's a scene of him going like, I have absolutely nothing to do with Michael Keaton, whatever. And then he disappears, and that's the end of him, and you never see him again.
Well, the idea is that he comes from a rich family.
And there's this really slow pan. There is this really slow pan out. You start off with the lawyer. I bet you thought the same thing. You start off with the lawyer behind the desk, and there's this really slow pan back, and I'm like, any minute now, Michael Keaton is going to be sat there, like, I don't know, naked or something, and there'll be some extra scene where Keaton and the lawyer are like rubbing their hands together, coming up with something that will explain why I've been sitting through this and why Keaton is up to everything. No, nothing. No. It just pans out for 10 minutes, and all you see is more room, and then you never see the lawyer again.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing that really is that there kept being these moments of like Hollywood melodrama, the smashing through the plate thing, the shooting him in the arm thing, Keaton swanning about as someone else on a yacht. There was all this stuff that was kind of like big, bombastic Hollywood stuff, in amongst a very kind of tedious, turgid, like you say, rental dispute movie. And bits where we're meant to feel like, oh, the injustice of it, but really I'm just thinking, this is just irritating me from start to finish. And I'm blaming Modine as much as I'm blaming Keaton. Like, I'm really hating on Modine with every breath that I have.
And he's kind of hateful.
He is kind of hateful. And yet, the only way to... There's two ways to have done it. The one way would have been that he moved in, it was all above board, yada, 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 and then slowly but surely, really creepy, dark, twisted stuff came out about him, and it was done in a pot-boilery, Hitchcockian way, which then built up maybe to a big crescendo. The other way to have done it would have been to have really done it, like you say, where like Keaton is sat around naked or like chewing on rabbits he's just killed or something, I don't know, where you push it to like he moves in and he's immediately Jack Nicholson from The Shining. He's immediately crazy. Like he's
or it's like, or it has like a more horror-y aspect.
So that the whole movie is a melodramatic bam 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 da 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 da. Like you could have done the whole movie that way. But doing this movie in a kind of, well, I don't know what it is and I don't know where we're going and I don't know who any of these people are.
Well, I think it just shows, doesn't it? Because I reckon you're right. I reckon it must have been that they really wanted to make, like you say, like a Hitchcocky, pot-boilery kind of a movie.
Oh, they clearly did. Yeah.
But it just goes to show how incredibly hard that stuff is to write. You know, it's incredibly hard to get that right.
And to mount, and to direct,
and to film, and to get everything right. But I do think the script is really bad. Like, in terms of... and... You know, like some of the things and just in terms of like the setting out the characters and stuff, like you have this whole guy with this whole story, and it's never explained. You never know why he's there. You never know what he's doing. You never know what he's trying to achieve or what his background is or anything.
Yeah,
none of it ever makes sense. And Modine, you know that they want to get white curtains for the front room, and that they're thinking about doing the bathroom in green, but you have no idea, but you also know that he like says like an oddly racist thing at one moment, and doesn't he?
Yeah.
And he's also like constantly makes like he gets really, really angry really quickly over absolutely nothing, which is basically a product of the script going, oh well, he needs to be really angry at this point.
Right.
I mean, I haven't really set up why he's that angry, apart from that the guy's making a bit of noise.
Sure.
And then, like you say, there's this extra problem of the pacing. And like, I'm just amazed that the guy who made. Isn't that the most amazing thing about it? That the guy who directed Midnight Cowboy and Marathon Man, especially Marathon Man, which is a horribly intense, full-on, stressful film.
Yeah.
That makes you like.
Well, so's this, really, but for a completely different reason. Because you're sat there screaming at the TV, going, "No, don't do that! What are you doing that for?"
Yeah, exactly, yeah. It's amazing to me that it came out the way it did.
Well, the other thing is like you say, Modine is trying all the ranges of the rainbow without really succeeding at any of them, and Melanie Griffith looks like she's about to fall asleep.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I will give it is there are a couple of really, like, unintentionally really hilarious moments, and one of them is Keaton sitting alone smoking in his Porsche, because there's this scene where there's like a power outage or something, and Melanie Griffith goes downstairs to have a look at the fuses.
Again, and riveting
there's a sort
stuff. Power
thrilling stuff. Like someone puts a nail into a power line and all the lights have gone out. I mean, and there's nothing happens in the dark. She goes down into the basement, which is also like the garage, and she's fiddling around with these fuses, and then you see the unmistakable silhouette of Keaton sitting in his Porsche smoking a fag. And what I found, first of all, I just found it completely hilarious as just in every way, because I thought, I wonder how long he's been sitting down there and how many cigarettes he's had, because he hasn't set up the power outage. That is a genuine accident. So presumably he sits down there day in, day out for the last 3 weeks smoking fags, hoping to spook out Melanie Griffith the next time she comes down.
Yeah.
And the other thing that was proper funny was Modine's nightmare sequence, where Keaton gets out of the car and Melanie Griffith starts, like, you know, smooching him on the bonnet of the Porsche or whatever. Like, that was really funny.
Well, no, Griffith gets out of the car with like a strap over her arm, assuming that she's been in the Porsche boinking Keaton, I think, or something like that.
Right, or something like that. Yeah. But that was really funny as well, because it was so ham-fisted, that whole like dream sequence. It's one of those dream sequences where you're going, this dream sequence seems an awful lot like a sort of Kate Bush video. like there's lots of, like, you know, it just looks like a 80s music video, not a dream.
No. The whole thing was horrible. I mean, we've probably talked quite enough about it. I didn't enjoy it. It was a frustrating and an annoying turn of events to have to watch it. And the more we talk about it, and the more I realise that, it was about disputes over noise. And the way that she scuppered him was to buy a few extra rounds of chicken for the fucking lunch trolley or whatever.
Yeah.
Who gives a fuck?
Yeah.
I mean,
and it's such a yuppie nightmare.
Yeah.
That there's actually a scene where Keaton, when Keaton finally gets violent, he gets violent incorporating golf clubs. That's how much of a yuppie nightmare this film is. To be attacked with your own golf clubs. That's the ultimate nightmare, isn't it? You know.
I think that the reason why there are occasional moments of ridiculous melodramatic violence in this movie is down to our old friend, the cigar-chomping Hollywood executive, who, I bet the scene where, like, there was meant to be a fight between Modine and Keaton, I'm sure it was like, can we have them roll down the stairs? Can we have them crash through the door? Like that. Like, there was this whole thing, because in reality, that just wouldn't
Can the house explode behind them when they crash through the door? No, that's too far.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a very... and I bet, like, that house, which, by the way, isn't in... apparently there is an area called Pacific Heights. I mean, I don't know.
It's not even in Pacific Heights, no.
It's not even in Pacific Heights, and I bet it's not worth even $1 more for the fact that film was shot there. In fact, I reckon it's worth considerably less than it was before that film was shot there.
Well, it certainly isn't worth $750,000 anymore. It would be probably more close to 3 or 4 million at this point.
I reckon it's probably worth 500,000.
Based on that
Pacific
movie.
Heist was filmed here. Oh God, I'm not interested.
I'm not interested. Yes, let's move on to the considerably better. Well, I don't know better, but certainly more enjoyable Shock to the System.
New York wasn't what it used to be. Still, he was looking forward to his promotion. He'd worked hard for many years in the American corporate structure. He'd earned it.
You didn't get it, Graham.
No, of course you got it, Graham. You always get it.
I don't believe this. Fucking assholes.
Can't we just make the office go away?
Emperor.
I forgive you for failing.
I forgive you for failing, Graham.
I'm afraid we have some very bad news for you.
Oh my God. What a shock. I have more power in this hand than all you fucking know. Every sorcerer needs an apprentice. Bibbidi, bobbidi, boo. It was the first black magic he'd ever even tried.
I really mean it when I say be careful.
Yes, I had a question about the Bob Benning case.
I'll be right there.
Killing is easy. But getting away with it can be murder. You betrayed me. You betrayed the magic. Abracadabra. Shalakazam. Bye-bye, baby. Boom. A shock to the system.
Yeah, shock to the system. Again, I think just as Pacific Heist is a film that I don't think will get made today because, as I say, the stakes are so low. Like I think that's the most remarkable thing about that film. I think that this film would have a lot of trouble getting made because it's such a naked, white, male, middle class, downtrodden office drone fantasy. Isn't it? I mean, it is,
but it's also...
I mean, that's not to say that it isn't well done and fun.
There's quite a hefty chunk, though, I think, of this movie that's actually a satire against all those people.
Well, but I don't... I mean, no, I don't think so. I mean, I just think it's a flat-out...
I don't know. I think this...
fantasy of, the older office drone... feels a bit left behind. This is his ultimate fantasy, which is bump off your wife, find a nice new squeeze, kill the boss. It's all total office drone fantasy, this film.
But isn't the overarching thing the satire of like business eating itself or business killing itself or business
again, I don't I don't think there's any big satire at play. I think what's remarkable about the early 90s and late 80s is that there's no real...
See, I think this is a satire about the 80s yuppie boom. I think that's what this is. And I take what you're saying, and I understand where you're coming from, and I can agree on so many levels. But I do think that there is I certainly watch it like there's a satire to it, to the idea that the ever-accumulating power and wealth and all the rest of it that Caine is trying to get... and the satire in this comes at an extreme cost. And in reality, it comes at a cost. And I think the reason why I think it's a satire versus just a fantasy is that when he gets into a position of some power and he's talking to that slightly higher boss, he's talking about, well, we need to lay these people off, we need to lay these people off, and blah, 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 blah. And I think that is a comment on industry that is still going on today. That's how I watch it now, with hindsight, after the collapse and everything like that. It's not.
No, that's fair. I think it does a better job of. It just does a better job as a film. I mean, everything about it is just a better job. But I think that was that felt to me like simply a product of his transformation into a bit of this fun transformation of Caine into a monster. Basically, we should give the setup. So basically,
we will do, but I think that transformation is a comment on. Although we are meant to like Caine, I don't think at any point are we meant to be rooting for him to become hugely successful. I think we're meant to be cynical and
I think you're absolutely supposed to be rooting for Michael Caine the whole way through the film.
No, see, I think you're meant to be in on the joke.
Are you telling me you weren't rooting for Michael Caine watching this film?
No, of course I was rooting for Michael Caine, but I wasn't rooting... I was rooting for him within the satire that the story was telling me. Not the idea of... If I really knew Michael Caine's character, no, I wouldn't be rooting for him. But I'm rooting for him because the movie is showing me... the root of all power is evil, and the corporate structure is so set up that to really get anywhere, you don't just have to stand on people's necks anymore, you have to fucking kill them.
Now, that is true. I mean, it's definitely fair to say that it has an ambition to be saying something, because I was very struck by there was a, but it was just, I do feel like it was a thin veneer. I don't feel like it was the core of the film. I think the core of the film is an office drone fantasy, and I think it has a smudge of satire like lay on top of that. Because, for instance, it says stuff like, there's a very actually what it reminded me of was certain scenes from American Psycho. There was this thing about which, as you say, is again a very similar.
But that's a satire. That's clearly a satire.
Yeah, absolutely. The thing they reminded me of, but the element that reminds me of American Psycho, not the whole film, but the element that reminds me of American Psycho, which is a lot cleverer than this, was the homelessness stuff, because there was a very strong theme in the film of homeless people, and he keeps on interacting with homeless people the whole way through. And he also talks about America being, New York having turned into a shithole, and it's not what it was. And there's also a scene, very striking. I thought one of the best scenes in the film was when the guy goes and the ex-executive goes to the train station he's gone to for his entire life, and he sits down among a lot of homeless, unemployed, sort of, basically the detritus of society on these benches in the station. And he takes a load of pills and kills himself. I mean, I thought that was really... That was a really, really strong scene.
I do
that
think
really had something to say.
I do genuinely think there's more going on here, but we'll get into it anyway. I mean, let me set it up and then you can go through the plot. It's a shock to the system. It's 1990. It's directed by Jan Eggleston, who is really only known for a bunch of similar thriller-themed TV movies with names like The Last Hit, Double Deception, Justice in a Small Town, Original Sins, etc. And they're all TV movies throughout the 90s. This appears to be, apart from Big Time, which was a movie nobody's ever heard of, it appears to be the only other movie that went to theatres for this guy. Everything else has been a TV movie. It stars Michael Caine as the lead. It's got Elizabeth McGovern. It's got Peter Riegert, who you recognise from Animal House, and any other notables?
Yeah, the cop.
Oh, Will Patton. Yes, Will Patton.
I like Will Patton.
Yeah. Who's been in a bunch of stuff, yeah.
Yeah, so, and basically the plot is that Michael Caine is a Englishman living in New York. He's an Englishman in New York. He's a marketing executive for a large faceless firm of some description that's never really gotten into. He narrates the whole film, which I thoroughly enjoyed. I really enjoy a Michael Caine narration.
Yeah.
And basically he's talking you through his very standard, well-off upper middle class existence, which is basically going into New York every day, working himself to death, becoming more and more disenchanted with his commute and identical same everyday life, and family. He actually doesn't have any children. He just has a wife, and he is waiting for a big promotion, which he's about to get. Fails to get said promotion, which you know is coming from the beginning of the movie because it's played up so much, in favour of a younger man. And after having this snub, and after a lethal moment on the subway, is turned into
where he may or may not have killed a hobo. You can't tell.
He turns into a vicious, will do anything to succeed maniac. And basically the whole film is following the sort of delightful Machiavellian route he takes to. Well, it's not even Machiavellian, because Machiavellian implies a certain amount of, tact and cunning, whereas basically he's just.
Well, he has some cunning to the way.
Yeah, but it's cunning murder. It's not. Yeah. There's nothing sort of political about what he does. It's just flat out murder. It's just grisly, clever murders. And so the film plays out, and that's what the film is all about. I mean, I was very struck by the fact when I looked at the IMDb page that, just like you say, I was like, wow, the writer and director really haven't done much before, and it seems very much like a sort of TV movie that people went, actually, this was a lot of fun. I reckon we should give this a shot in the theatres. Don't you reckon? Like, it feels like that.
Yeah, I mean, it was released by Medusa Pictures, who really released sort of B movies, horror movies, genre movies in the 80s and 90s. They weren't a big releasing house, so it wasn't. Yeah,
but I mean, who knows? I mean, maybe it was released purely on the basis of it might pick up, it might do good business in England, because I remember in Star Video, A Shock to the System had a fair few copies, and it was right there on the shelves. It was very noticeable.
Oh yeah, it was certainly a big Caine release on video that I remember.
Yeah. So it had it did its thing, and it is weirdly fun. Like when it started out, I have to say it was a lot better than I expected it to be.
Well, it belts along at a pace. That's what helps it. It belts along at a pace. It really does.
It's determined to entertain you at every point. There's none of this flab.
Everyone in the movie. The best thing about it is that there's this constant argument I always have with people. Not argument so much as discussion, but there's a constant discussion I have with people about this idea of, you get this knee-jerk reaction if you say about a movie there wasn't a likable character. Well, people go, well, look, why should people have to be likable? Like, people get all like affronted by that and say, but surely movies and art and stuff can have people in them who are really like wicked and evil and whatever. And actually, of all the movies that I've seen where really you just wish there was someone you could identify, because what you mean by likable is you mean someone you can follow through the movie. They don't have to be the greatest moral arbiter, but they have to be someone you can follow through the movie. Because if you're not following a protagonist, movies get turgid, dull, frustrating.
What's the point?
Right, exactly. A case in point is Pacific Heights. Who do I give a shit about in Pacific Heights? Who am I following? Who do I care? Nobody. In the case of this, the genius about it is that nobody in the movie is, quote-unquote, a likable character. Every single one of them has a problem. From the old guy, George, the executive who basically doesn't want to play the young man's game and is therefore all but given up, which leads to the hilarious scene where he's just stood in the corridor while the younger guy's taken over his office, and Caine comes up to him and goes, "What are you doing? What are you doing standing in the corridor, George?" Like that, which I loved. I thought was really good. But he's kind of weak-willed and like a little, yellow or a little like feeble. So you can't really root for him. The secretary is clearly trying to like shag her way into like Caine's good graces, or is all over him like a rash until she realizes that he might not be the best kind of guy to be around. All the young executives and young yuppies and stuff are utterly hateful, and are made hateful the first moment where they take Caine out for a meal, for lunch, and all sit around talking about what fucking yachts they have and what summer homes they have and whatever else, which was a very, very American Psycho scene. It reminded me a lot of like the business card scene in American Psycho, which is obviously a much more specific, minutiae satire, but like, as opposed to Shock to the System, which is talking about yachts and summer homes, it's far more obvious. But they're made utterly despicable. Caine is a mass murderer, like on his way to becoming a mass murderer. So, but, and even the detective, you kind of don't want the detective to like arrest him. You know what I mean? You kind of want him to get away with killing these utter fevered egos. So, nobody in the movie is quote unquote morally likable, yet you follow Caine with quite a kind of, this is a good old thriller that's rollicking along, and I'm kind of enjoying him being a bit bonkers and talking about Merlin the Magician and, abracadabra and all this kind of stuff. Yeah. And his wife is annoying, and I'm glad she's dead, and I'm glad he's moved to a palatial Tribeca apartment so that he can
started wearing black shirts.
Wearing black shirts and sleazing all over his. That's the ultimate
thing of now he's a changed man, is he starts wearing black shirts with his suits.
Right.
But I mean, I think, that was quite a nice thing about it, because it doesn't have that razor sharp satire that an American Psycho has, or even because there are things about it that also reminded me of an American Beauty kind of a thing as well.
Sure, no, it's not cutting at any point, but
it doesn't have that that's really clever thing,
right? But something you can take away from is what I'm saying. You can take it away from the movie once you've seen it, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, what it does have is it has a nice little. I thought one nice little moment, and this is the way I took it, and I don't know whether everyone would, but there's this whole set-up scene where he again another Pacific Heights link, power going out. Only in this, it actually serves a purpose, which is the power goes out in his house because his wife has this Stairmaster thing. And
also they live in rural Connecticut, so
they live in rural Connecticut in this big old house. And every time she turns on the Stairmaster, it blows the fuses. And when he goes downstairs, he has to reach up and switch on this light, and he gets a powerful shock from it. And I took that as a sort of like an almost supernatural moment of him being changed by that shock, and it sort of jolting him out of this sort of, jolted him out of this sort of track that he's stuck on, and he's now free to take a different path,
Yeah, completely.
And I was like, oh, that's quite a nice.
It is the most ludicrous scene, though, because he gets blown back and goes, "Ah!"
Yeah. And then he sort of giggles afterwards in a nice way. And
sure,
I think that's the other good thing about it, because I don't know. We're only at the beginning of this Caine and Keaton odyssey, but I do know that. He's famous for saying about the Jaws movie, I needed the new roof on my house and all this kind of stuff. But I felt like watching the film, he was actually having quite a good time making it. I felt like he was, not taking it remotely seriously, but having a good time doing it. Because the little moment after he gets the shock where he's lying down, he sort of giggles to himself, felt like something that he'd sort of tossed in there as a little, cheeky Caine moment. It felt really, really good. He brings out because each actor has a particular, a set of tics or little things about them. Keaton is all about the eyebrows. I mean, there is much more to Keaton, more striking than those eyebrows. And Caine obviously has a number of them, but I think the thing that made me sort of grin in delight when he did it was the Caine point, where he's addressing someone, and he points to it, and it's when he's saying, "You betrayed me," and he does the little point as walking thing, which is it comes out in every single performance I've ever seen from Michael Caine, is the point. It felt like he was enjoying it, and it rollicks along. It's got nice performances. I thought all of the cast did well. I liked her. She's not a secretary; she's like a fellow executive there, and I liked her.
But she's
I
his
liked
assistant.
her as an actress.
She's
not his assistant. She's just a fellow executive. She's not an assistant.
Oh, okay. No,
she's a fellow executive within the marketing thing,
right?
But just a younger person, probably more junior.
Okay.
And I liked her. I liked seeing Sleazy Man from Animal House in there, because he was just so sleazy and despicable and hateful.
Yeah.
They were like, I can't wait for you to be murdered. That would be good fun.
Well, that's what I thought when his boat is blown up. Previously in the script, Caine had described his setup as the American dream in action kind of thing. And that's what I mean about there being just a little satire to it, because I don't think Caine's character is entirely trying to... I don't think he's jealous so much as kind of just flat out fucking hates these people and kind of wants to blow up the American dream a little bit. Do you know what I mean? Or point out the fact that the American dream at its core is also violent and money grabbing and, pretentious and all those other things.
Yeah. And that's definitely there. It's just not, it's not done particularly artfully. Let's not pretend.
No. It's a total B movie thriller. It's totally a B movie thriller. I'm not saying that it isn't. I'm just saying that there is stuff you can take away from it. And I think if anything wooed Caine and Rieger and people like that to the movie, it's this script that clearly had some stuff in it. Now it's based on a novel as well, which is also a bit more telling that it's got its roots in something that's maybe a little bit more serious.
But it's good as well because it's full of all these. Basically, after Caine doesn't get this promotion, El Sleazo gets the promotion instead, and El Sleazo subjects Caine to a series of very petty humiliations.
Right.
And, like he puts someone else in his office and he's basically trying to very slowly force him out through frustration and anger and etc.
What's he doing in my bloody office?
Yeah, and so you get loads of Michael Caine being angry, which is great fun. But it does make it, but you do think like, You do know when you're watching it, even though you do kind of root him, and even though at its heart there is this, like I say, at its heart it is, however you slice it, it is a old upper middle class white male fantasy in many respects.
Yeah.
You are kind of. It's testament to his performance that you are kind of with him anyway,
right?
And that you are like. But you do know when you see him getting really angry about this stuff, you do know, like, but it's such petty, meaningless bullshit. But you're still with him for...
Except that he's aware what it does mean within the business world. Like, he's aware that having someone put into his office
like
and
it does mean a lot within the business world, but...
No, in the grand scheme of things, it means nothing.
Petty, meaningless nothings, and
right,
but that helps. That helps that thing, and I like I agree. I like this sort of magic. This little magic thing. There's this very little thing going on about him constantly making little magician references and talking about himself as Merlin and all this stuff.
Well, it's because up until recently, up until like new technology and the young yuppies and all the rest of it, everything he touched turned to gold. So it's this idea that his wife used to call him Merlin or whatever it was.
Yeah. And that little moment of the power, because they have this very 80s moment where when he gets the shock, you see this little sort of blue lightning bolt that someone's painted onto the film after production, whatever. And that's great, and it just makes you think like, oh, that's the moment, and as it becomes, and you're excited at the prospect of it's nicely set up. As soon as he starts talking, the narration, you sort of go, oh, okay, I'm kind of interested in this. It's nicely set up, and as soon as he gets on the road of like bumping people off left, right, and centre, you just sort of sit back and go, excellent. I think this is going to be fun, finding out how he's going to bump all these people off.
Yeah.
If anything, I could have used more murder.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I it's not a movie I'm going to put in all the time, but I think that it's got, on one hand, it's a zippy, no-nonsense B-movie thriller with a great Caine performance in the lead. And on the other hand, it's got a smattering of knowing or something that I was aware of, kind of satire that I enjoyed. And thirdly, having worked most recently in companies that are still going through that. I mean, the other joke about this fucking movie is that 14, 15 years later, companies are still exactly the same. In order to try and make any profit, they fire people and they, create shitty products and, they have rearranging and they get rid of the old guard. They bring in some new buck who's got some idea, but the idea isn't really very fucking solid, but it's new and it's young and therefore we'll do it for a while until it falls on its ass, Like, I've seen all that. I've seen all that firsthand a ton of times. So I think maybe that's why I was able to read maybe some satire into it, because I've genuinely been in offices like that. And no, I haven't sat there and gone, I really want to blow up this guy's boat, because I really don't give a fuck about the guy having a boat. But I do want that guy to stop being such a dick. I want him to go, I've got a boat, and it's really nice that I've got a boat, and I've earned my boat, and it's really lovely that I've got, and I've actually managed to, like, but I'm not going to be such a dick about it. I'm just going to... and so there is that aspect of me being able to get into the plot and get into the characters and get into the scenario in a way that personally I can kind of enjoy a little bit. So it had kind of three things going on for me, and I just enjoyed it. It's a totally throwaway B-movie 90s thriller, but as far as they go, it's pretty bloody well done.
Exactly. That's the thing. I would honestly say that, you know, so of tonight's movies, I would say that...
Because Will Patton... If he isn't doing Columbo, I don't know what... Like, him just showing up, him going, oh, there was new masking tape on the wire. I'm like, so what if there was new masking tape on the wire in the basement? Like, how many basements...
Yeah, and Caine just destroys that straight away, which is nice to see.
Yeah.
But that's what I'd say is... I stuck it in on a... I was saying to you before we started recording, it's unbelievably hot in England at the moment, in London particularly.
Yeah.
And I could barely move, and I thought, like, right, let's get on and watch this movie because I can't do anything else. And it was really entertaining. It like an hour and a half just flew by.
Sure.
There were laughs in it. It was a good, strong Caine performance, and I have to say that I expect that in some of the films that are coming, we're going to be like, wow, Michael was barely awake for half of that film. Whereas for this one, it seems like he was actually having some fun.
Yeah.
And
I think the key scene for that is him definitely walking up to George in the corridor and be like, what are you doing in the corridor, George?
Yeah.
Get out of the corridor.
And it was a good script. It was a good cast. Across the board, I thought they were a good cast.
Definitely, I enjoyed it. Nicely shot.
Yeah,
New York looked good.
Yeah, there were a couple of weird angles going on in it.
Yeah, I don't know what
occasionally he went like, look at this. I've tipped my camera slightly, to the left, and like, yeah, that was totally
a TV movie transition. That's what that was. That was a TV
it was very
movie
distracting.
transition.
Very distracting. There were a couple of very strange shots in it. But
how did you get hold of the movie, by the way?
It was on Amazon Love Film.
Oh, okay.
So I just watched it on Love Film. But yeah, it was. I can. If you're stuck for a film and you don't really know what you're really in the mood for, I can say stick it on, and you won't. I don't think you'll be disappointed. Like, no, I really don't.
So, no. What's funny about the two movies is that the one that has stuck around a little more in terms of if you said to someone, "Oh, thrillers," well, there's always like Pacific Heights. People would know what you were talking about. People are like, "Oh yeah, no, I like that movie," even though it's not a very good movie. Whereas if you went A Shock to the System, people were like, I'm sorry, what? And you'd be like, Michael Caine, New York, bumping people up. No, never heard of it. Even though it was quite big when it came out. So I think it's odd that the one that isn't as good has kind of stuck around in the consciousness a little more. But I think Shock to the System needs a reevaluation, and I liked it a lot.
Yeah, it was awesome. So yeah, if you're going to take one of these two, I mean, Caine wins this round, that's for sure.
Yes.
But only, to be fair, because Michael does not get a chance in Pacific Heights. He really doesn't even begin to get a chance. And he has a couple of half-decent moments, but that's the most you can say about it. But not because he's crap, just because he doesn't have enough to do.
No, I agree. So next time, I've put forth my idea, which would be to do two of their, again, late 80s, early 90s comedic roles, both of which two of their strongest performances as well, so it's going to be interesting. And I want to say, let's do The Dream Team and Dirty Rotten Scoundrels.
Okay. I don't want to do those two next. The only reason I say I don't want to do those two next is because in the introduction to this whole thing, you have mentioned a few movies there which I'm really intrigued by, which I haven't seen, and I'd really like to do that next. Like, I definitely want to do Dream Team and the other one.
Okay.
But The Hand and the Island and all this sounds really intriguing to me.
All right.
So I'd rather do some utter randoms which I haven't seen.
Okay.
Okay. We are totally doing The Island and Night Shift, because I'm now looking at the Night Shift page and I'm just like, we have to do this. Henry Winkler and Keaton in a Ron Howard comedy about a morgue attendant.
Okay.
This sounds good. All I'm saying is I'm really up for the randoms that I haven't seen next, because that's the whole joy of these process for me.
Sure.
I'll definitely do the Dream Team, Dirty Rotten Scandals, because they're both just utterly awesome films.
So we're going to do Night Shift.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, you don't sound...
No. That the picture of him and Winkler looks ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, I love Winkler.
I love Winkler.
And I've met Winkler, which is awesome. Is Keaton in it a lot? What's his billing?
Yeah, he's the two... they're the two main characters. So a nebbish of a morgue attendant gets shunted back,
and he's
to the night
Bill
shift where he's
Blazkowski
with an obnoxious neophyte partner. So they're partners. It's Winkler and Keaton as morgue attendant partners. It just sounds like a total winner to me.
Okay. Well, The Island I can send you, because I think I have. And as for Night Shift, okay, well, I'll try and find it. If not, we'll just have to rent it for $2 on Amazon, which I don't mind doing. It's also got Clint Howard in it. Of course.
It looks good to me. And it's Shelley Long as well.
Shelley
wow.
Long, yeah.
Yeah, well, that's great.
All right, so next time, coming at you, we're going to be doing Night Shift and The Island. One B-movie, kind of trashy horror, one comedy. And I'll be looking forward to that. So, yeah, as soon as you've watched them, let me know, dude.
I will. I may even be watching one tonight, I must say.
Okay.
Because I'm on my own tonight. So, yes, indeed. Well, have yourself a lovely rest of the weekend, man.
Will do, Chief.
And I'll come back at you with a date for another podcast, because it's tremendous fun, as always, to do one of these. I just love it.
And the more we can get back into the rhythm of doing these ones, the better. I love them. Country trying to find a friend and a home, but nothing I do seems right. Maybe because I unleash cockroaches into the rest of your house, and I bang holes in the wall all night. Maybe it's because when I finally leave, I take the sink and the bath and the lights. But I just get so tired of living out here on the road. Try to dress like the rest, rent a flashy sports car and smile, shake hands, be polite. Then at the same time I'm trying to con you out of your money and trample on all of your rights. Well, no one said being a landlord was swell, especially up in Pacific Heights. But still I just get so lonely living out here on the road. And when you least expect it, I'll be sitting in my car, freaking you out, not saying very much. Or I'll be bringing you flowers, knowing full well that I caused all of your blues. You can hire a lawyer, throw me downstairs. What bit of me do you think really cares? Well, there's one born every minute, back to the system, but I get what I want. It's the American dream writ large in a big bleeding font. And there's always someone else in the way. You gotta learn to be a fighter. Oh, there's always someone else in the way. You gotta learn to be a fighter. Yeah, there's always someone else in the way. You gotta learn to be a fighter.
There are men, and then there are second unit podcast men. The podcast you've just been listening to is part of the Second Unit Podcast Network. Find all of our shows at 2upn.blogspot.com or on Facebook under the Second Unit Podcast Network. Our fantastic list of shows include Drunk on VHS, We Came from the Basement, No Budget Nightmares, The After Movie Diner, Dr. Action and the Kick-Ass Kid, and Bloodbaths and Boomsticks. Take one podcast into the shower. Don't be a blithering idiot, Alan. We can give you the multiple podcast cleansing system all in one place that your hair deserves. Our programming is available across all platforms from iTunes to Podomatic, TalkShoe to Stitcher, so you have absolutely no excuse. Listen today, and a free naked person of your choice will be shipped from Thailand to your door in a matter of weeks. The Second Unit Podcast Network, bringing you the action and leaving the boring stuff to the other guys. Bloody hell. Who does a girl have to blow around here to get a decent beverage?